this engine does have a ton of torque and a ton of mid-range. Like, whoo! Hello there, and welcome to another episode where we are covering the TLX Type S. Yes, this is the performance version of Acura's TLX that I drove a couple months ago, and I enjoyed that car. It had the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, but this one has a much beefier 3-liter turbocharged, single turbocharged engine, making about 355 horsepower. It's important to keep in mind what this car competes with, because this is not by any means an M3 competitor, a C63S competitor, maybe an RS product from a Audi competitor. It's not like that. It's more of your M340i competitor or your S4 competitor, something along those lines. Starting with the exterior though, I absolutely love the way this looks. You know, the 340i hasn't inherited the bucktooth grille of some of the other BMW products yet, which is a good thing, but I still think that this is a better looking car from that. I think it's a better looking car than the Audi S4 as well. So in this segment, this might be the best looking to my eye. And not only just, the styling of it, but also the color choices, especially this color. This color is called Tiger Eye. And I never thought I would be interested, if I was going to buy this vehicle, I never thought I'd be interested in a color like this, because the blue color that was on the base TLX that I drove was phenomenal, so much flake, and the quality is top notch. But this color is amazing. It's unique. It has a ton of depth. It has a ton of flake when you see it in the sun. I just really, really, really like it. I'm going to keep the interior segment a bit short because really it's not that different than the base TLX. So if you want all the ins and outs of that interior, go look at my base TLX video. There are a couple changes here that are really related to specifically the Type S. Obviously badging, there's a badging on the steering wheel, there's some on the floor mats and even the door sills, just trying to make you feel a little bit more special. And then the dynamic mode button, which is how you select how you drive. There are dynamic modes in the base TLX, but you get more granular in the Type S. You can customize your settings, whether you want, an aggressive throttle or, a firmer suspension. You can choose those things, and you have your own individual mode, which I really enjoy, being able to choose if you want more aggressive throttle and a more comfortable suspension, things like that. So that's a nice addition to the Type S. These seats are really, really nice, but they're basically the same seats, near as I can tell, that were in the TLX A-Spec. They're very supportive, they're very comfortable, but yeah, they are basically identical, nearest I can tell, to those seats. So really not too much new on the interior here. It's time for us to take this thing for a spin, but one quick note, I apologize ahead of time. The production value of this one might not be as good as my normal standard. Unfortunately, a bunch of my camera and audio equipment was stolen recently, but I'm working on replacing it so we can get back to the usual quality. Time to take the TLX Type S for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, because that of course is most important. I'm going to hit this dynamic mode button twice to the right and put it in Sport Plus here. Nope, that was just Sport. Would really appreciate buttons, not this little knob, but alas. We are on a super tight road. Gets a little bit better or a little more open here in a bit. This is Tuna Canyon Road. Really cool road, super good views. And you know what? A super cool car to take them on. Even though this is a pretty big car to take on this road, I kind of prefer to come up here with smaller cars. I love to come up here in my GT4, but I decided to do Tuna Canyon because one of the things that this car does really well is rotate. It's actually uncanny how well this car rotates, and it is all-wheel drive, of course. And what's interesting about the all-wheel drive system is that it differs a bit from a lot of the other competitors, because it is first and foremost a front-wheel drive car that they converted to rear-wheel drive, and it has a proper diff in the back, torque vectoring diff, and it can move power around like crazy, and it does do that. It's one of those things where, like I said, it feels a little uncanny, how well it rotates. It's almost GTR-esque in that regard, where you kind of just get in, point it, and the car sorts it out for you. So, you know, that, depending on what kind of driver you are, that could be good or bad. I mean, if you're someone who likes to just get in a car, it's super approachable, not intimidating at all, and you could whip it around, anyone can get in this car and drive it super fast. But if you're looking for a slightly more rewarding driving experience, I'm not going to say it's not fun to drive, because it's still plenty fun to drive, but it's just like you're going to reach the limit, and the limit with the car very quickly, because, like I said, everything's kind of being sorted out for you. But the chassis is probably the best part of the car. It's super neutral, no understeer, no oversteer, and you know, you can really thank, oh, speed bump, you can really thank that all-wheel drive system for that. The suspension is another part of this car that I really, really love. It is super compliant in the street, and in Sport Plus setting here, it gets stiffened up a bit. So you have basically a situation where when you come out to the canyons, or you're trying to do some more spirited driving, it stiffens up, but it is so nice around town, soaks up bumps really, really well. I love this adaptive suspension. You guys hear me complain so much about suspensions that are too harsh for a street car. You know, BMW has been doing that a lot with some of their products, especially their M products. They just make them too stiff. Now, this engine, we only get to kind of flex it a little bit here and there on this road because it's so tight. But the first thing I want to say is, I don't know if you noticed that when I put my foot down, there's a huge lag between it actually, my foot going down and something actually happening. And there's kind of two reasons for that, nearest I can tell. Also, this is a one-way road, which is super sweet, so I don't have to worry about cars coming around the corner. But there is a bit of turbo lag, so that is one reason why it takes a little bit amount of time. I've especially noticed that kind of on the highway, slam down, and you gotta wait for the power to come on. But also, I can tell that at a stop, they are like feathering in the power. They are really not giving you all that power up front. I assume that they're just like worried about the powertrain handling it, or the drivetrain, I should say, handling all this power. So that's a little bit annoying, but this engine does have a ton of torque and a ton of mid-range. Like, whoo, ton of mid-range right there. Now, it is not like your Hondas or Acuras of yesteryear. Look at that. God, it rotates well. It is not like your Hondas or Acuras of yesteryear because it's not high revving. So that is a little bit of a bummer. And if you kind of take this engine in a vacuum, it seems pretty good. You know, it's kind of on par with a lot of stuff in this segment, power-wise, and like I said, a little bit of lag compared to some other cars, but not bad. But yeah, it doesn't really rev. I wish it would rev higher. 6,200 RPM is not a lot of RPM for really any manufacturer, and especially Honda. Now let's talk about this transmission. It is a 10-speed transmission, and overall it's pretty good. Okay to good, somewhere around there. Super smooth. You'll notice a theme with this car. Suspension is smooth, shifting is smooth, it's torque converted. So that's nice. But if you want to control it manually, pretty much just doesn't let you. I mean, it does to an extent, but when you get to redline, sometimes you just ask for shifts and it just won't do it. So it's one of those transmissions where it doesn't totally obey you. And that's a bit of a bummer in a performance car, of course. But if you'll notice, I have it just in Sport Plus and just letting it do its automatic thing. It's actually quite good on a back road if you just leave it in automatic and let it do its thing. Because if you'll notice here, watch this. I'm on the brakes. It will downshift for me. Of course, it didn't there. Most of the time, when you're like downshifting and braking into a corner, it will downshift for you. Downshift and braking into a corner. No, just braking into a corner, it should downshift. So like I'm braking. Oh, okay, it did it there. So, I try and give this transmission a compliment, and it won't even do it. No, but seriously, if you just leave it in automatic mode, it's great. So if you're okay with that, that's fine. If you need that ultimate level of control with the transmission and whatnot, it might frustrate you a little bit. Now, how about the brakes? Effective, very effective. Hold this car down really well. And as you can see, I've been doing like downhill, tight twisties. I haven't quite set the brakes on fire yet. I'm sure I could. But the one thing I don't really like about them, this is a fun corner. This reminds me of like basically the one part of the Nürburgring where it's all bumpy. But if you're the one issue I do have with the brakes is that they're quite sensitive and they're extremely hard to modulate. So what I remember now from the TLX base is that this car has brake-by-wire. And, I don't like to be one of those people that instantly is like, oh, it has brake-by-wire, the brakes are going to suck. I like to be objective about it. And I didn't know going into this car that it had it. But, I instantly, when I started using the brakes, I'm like, something is weird here. And it definitely, my mind went back to, oh, yeah, it's brake-by-wire. So they're a little bit weird, but they are effective. It's just that they give you too much sort of braking up front, and it's actually kind of, when you get in the car, hard to be smooth because it really gives you more braking than you're anticipating. I just hit that button to put it into my individual mode, which I prefer in this car. Comfort suspension, aggressive throttle response. That's my go-to. This road down here is really, really undulaty and bumpy, and the suspension just totally soaks it up. Definitely, as I mentioned before, probably the best part about the car. So really enjoy that. Some other things that I really enjoy about the car, these seats are super good. They hold me in well. They're, nearest I can tell, these same seats that were in the base model with A-Spec edition. So not all that special. You could get it in the base car. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but at the same time, they're really, really good. So I can't be too mad there. I also really like the steering wheel. I already mentioned in the TLX Type or the base model TLX, don't love these gauges. They are kind of like retro, harken back to the older Acuras, which I enjoy, but something about them I have a hard time being able to see. The car is fast. I mean, it's a fast car. Make no mistake about it. So what are some other things that we should talk about with this car? Well, it has a bunch of driver aids like every other car these days, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, which I'll use here. The lane keep assist, I'm not the biggest fan of. It tends to not stay in lanes really well, and I can't trust it. So that's not great, but I think the adaptive cruise control is fantastic. I use it all the time in LA traffic, as you can see, because I'm in LA traffic a lot. So that's a really nice feature of this thing. But yeah, the lane keep assist, there's a Kia in front of us. Kia has really good lane keep assist in that kind of segment. So Honda can do better, is basically what I'm getting at. But I really like this car, and who should buy it? I mean, who is it for? It's really for someone who values value. I know it's a silly thing to say, but if you're looking for a good value in this segment, it's hard to go wrong with this car, because if you were to spec out an S4 or a 340i with all this stuff, the heating cooled seats, all the safety measures, and adaptive cruise control, and all these added on things that this car just comes standard with, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So this is a good value. I also think that it looks the best out of the segment. It looks better than the S4. It looks better than the BMW 340i, personally, in my opinion. I know that the 340 hasn't quite suffered the buck tooth that the 4 Series and other models have, but I still think this is a better looking car. It comes in more interesting colors. I think this color is fantastic. And like I said, It's maybe not the ultimate. Sometimes it doesn't obey you with shifts, but it's still very sporty and it's still quite quick. And it is a Honda. It's a new engine. We don't know how it's going to hold up, but in general, Honda engines do pretty well. So might be a little bit better than the German counterparts. So take it for what it's worth. I've really enjoyed my time with the car. Thank you to Acura for letting me have a go. And let me know what you guys think in the comments below of this thing. Are you happy with what they did? Are you mad about them being turbocharged with a low red line now? Let me know what you think. The only thing I will say, I will leave you with this. This car doesn't stand out much because of the engine. You know, it's not that high revving engine that we're so used to. So the only thing that I keep thinking about is, what is the IS500 going to be like? Because that's going to be kind of in this segment too, and that's going to be pretty much the last one that's naturally aspirated. You know, it's going to have that V8. So very curious to drive that when it's out and compare it to this, because I really enjoy this car. But as I mentioned, now it's just forced induction like every other car now in this class, so it feels quite similar to those, and it's less of its own thing anymore. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Appreciate you guys watching. I think I'm also going to try and have a Kia Stinger soon too, because I haven't driven one of those. So stick around if you want to see that one. And once again, I appreciate you guys watching. See you next time. Bye.